to my channel. I am so glad to see you guys today because I am finally going to be remodeling my office into a spooky Beetlejuice themed room, which I think is going to be very exciting. So let's get right into it. I'm so excited to show you guys what I have today. So to start out with, I have this black and white wallpaper. As you can see, it's striped and it has a little bit of silver metallic. Hopefully you can see that pretty well. I'm going to put this on all of the walls today. I hope. I have 2 rolls of these and I don't know if it's enough, but if it's not enough, I'm definitely going to be doing my wall behind me because that's going to be my accent wall. And also this video is going to be 2 parts. So part 1 today will be me moving everything around and putting up the wallpaper. In part 2, I'm going to have my decorations. I have some really cool stuff to show you. Not all of it came yet, so I think I'm going to wait until part 2 to show you guys everything that I got, so I have it all at the same time. In case you're wondering, this wallpaper is from Lowe's. It's a peel and stick, which is really cool, meaning it's almost like a sticker. So on the back, there is a piece of paper that you peel off, and then you can stick this right on the wall. There's no glues or pastes or anything, which should be easy to use. And I have an X-Acto knife and a whole bunch of stuff to smooth this out with, so let's get started. I'm going to move everything first, and then I will meet you back here. So this is what the paper looks like opened. Hopefully you guys can see the silver stripe now. Okay guys, now everything is pretty much moved out of the way. As you can see, it is pretty empty in here now. So I'm going to go ahead and align this wallpaper to the wall behind me. I'm also going to pull this out as well. So I got this little wallpaper smoothing kit on Amazon, which I'm hoping works. In it, there was a X-Acto knife with an extra blade. There was 2 smoothing tools, one that has a little felt edge and one that's just straight plastic. And then it also came with this little tape measure. The only items I think I'm going to need are, of course, the X-Acto knife to cut across the molding down where the floor is, and then these smoothing tools to get rid of the air bubbles and make sure it's laying flat and there's no creases and stuff like that. So I hope this works. I've never done wallpaper myself before, but since this is peel and stick, I think it'll be pretty easy. I also wanted to mention that this paper I'm going to hang vertically like this. I don't think I'm going to do the horizontal stripes. I think vertical would look better. And I guess that's about it. I'm kind of nervous and kind of excited to get started, so let's do it. Let's put it up and see how it looks. So, problem. Already ran into a problem, didn't even start yet. I was trying to peel the back off the wallpaper and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't coming apart. And then when I looked at the directions, I realized that it's not peel and stick wallpaper. It is pre-pasted wallpaper. So what that means is that I'm gonna have to go soak this paper in my bathtub and then let it sit for a couple minutes until it gets sticky. And then when it gets sticky, I'll be able to put it up on the wall. So unfortunately, this isn't gonna be as easy as peel and stick. I thought I bought peel and stick, but I guess I got the wrong one. That's kind of a bummer. I guess I'm gonna have to measure the wall, cut out a piece that size, and then put it up. I don't really know how I'm gonna do that. It says you have to soak it, or else I would like, you know, like squirt it with water with like a spray bottle or something, but it says it needs to be coated. So I don't know if I should get like a paintbrush and like a good, you know, a paintbrush without paint on it and brush it with water maybe. I don't see how I'm gonna soak a piece that big in my bathtub. So I don't really know what to do. Maybe I'll try to wet it by hand and then see how that works. Unless I just wet my wall and then put it on there. I don't know. I have to think about it. Help me. Hey guys, so I'm back. After thinking about it and looking up a few things online, I decided that what I'm going to do is take this paintbrush, and I have a bowl full of plain water here. I'm just going to brush the water onto the wallpaper. As you can see, my dog and cat thinks they're helping. So anyway, what I decided I'm going to do is take this brush and brush the water onto the wallpaper like this. Get as even as a coat as I can. Then I will attempt to hang it onto the wall. There's also, I noticed, a little piece of white on the left-hand side, and that's kind of an overlap. So you can line up the next piece of wallpaper so there's no gaps or anything like that. So I'm actually going to start on the left side of the wall and work my way over like this. Like I said, I've never done wallpaper before. This seems super complicated, so hopefully it'll turn out all right in the end. I'm hoping it does. It was also talking about starting 2 inches above your ceiling in case your wall's uneven, so that if you start the wallpaper higher, you can just cut it, and if your wall is uneven, like, your wallpaper won't look weird. But I don't have a pattern, I just have stripes. I think I'm just going to start at the ceiling and see what happens. I don't think my walls are uneven, they look even to me. So I'm just going to start at the line where the ceiling meets the wall, and we'll see what happens. If it looks terrible, I guess I'll try to peel it off and redo it, but wish me luck. Hey guys, here goes nothing. Dipping my water in there and brushing onto the wallpaper. I also just laid down the wallpaper smoothers because this keeps wanting to roll back up, so I'm kind of just putting those on the ends to help straighten it out. They're not really helping because it's not that heavy, but I guess it's better than nothing. I don't know if you guys can see, but now that I'm putting water on this, it's getting kind of pasty, so that's good. I assume it means it's working. It said that a piece of the brush came off, but I think that's going to be okay. It said that I have to let this sit for 2 minutes, I think, to give the paste a chance to get sticky before I hang it up. So I'm going to do that, and I'll meet you guys up on the wall. Wish me luck. Okay, so here I go with hanging the paper. Once I felt that the back was tacky enough, I decided to hang it on the wall. So as I said, I decided to start where the wall meets the ceiling instead of 2 inches up like the directions said. And I think that worked out fine for me. This piece was pretty easy to hang up. The hardest part for me was smoothing out all of the air bubbles. I feel like that took a while. And then also lining up the paper with the corner of the wall just to make sure that I was hanging it straight. There was also a few moments of peeling and resticking the wallpaper just because as I was smoothing it out, it became creased because there was too much air underneath. So that was a learning curve for me and something I feel like I quickly mastered. I also took the smoothing tool and ran it along the ceiling and the edge of the wall just to make sure the edges of the paper were sticking really well. And I trimmed off the excess from the ceiling. I found that it was also best to start smoothing towards the ceiling and to work my way down as opposed to the opposite direction. I think smoothing up to down was definitely the best option, but I ended up going in all different directions as well. And then once I got down to the floor, I took that smoothing tool again and ran it along the molding on the floor just to make sure the paper had a really sharp line so I could cut it with the X-Acto knife right above the molding. There, of course, was parts where the wallpaper wasn't sticking very well because I didn't thoroughly soak it evenly with the water. So I ended up just taking the paintbrush and wetting the wall itself and then sticking the paper onto that. That seemed to work pretty well for me because once I had the paper up, wetting the part that wasn't connected to the wall yet was very challenging for me because that was before I cut it from the bottom, so I had to lift like the whole roll up in the air above my head and wet it, which was too much. So I decided that wetting the wall was easier, and in the end that really did seem to work out for me. This first piece of paper was definitely challenging to hang, but I felt as I kept going it got easier. Plus, I forgot to mention I'm doing this all on a ladder, so this was definitely a stealth operation. My arms and legs were killing me by the time I was done, but I think the final product was definitely worth all of this hassle. As you can see here, I'm brushing the water onto the wall and then sticking the paper down, and as I mentioned, that seemed to be a process that worked pretty well for me, and the paper did seem to stick just as well as if I soaked the whole thing beforehand. Here's what I was talking about when I mentioned running the smoothing tool along the molding on the bottom to get that crisp line, and then I cut it with the X-Acto knife just to make sure that I was cutting straight and leaving enough paper at the bottom. I repeated the same process up near the ceiling and along the edges as well. So once the first sheet of paper was hung, this is how it looked. I think it turned out really well. I was pretty proud of myself for doing this because it seemed impossible at first, but the farther I got into it, the easier it seemed. So next I'm going to repeat the first few steps and place the second sheet on the wall. Here I'm just wetting the second sheet with the water, just like we did before, in order to prep it so that it's tacky so that I can place it on the wall. Now this second piece was definitely way harder to hang than the first piece because, as I mentioned before, there is a little strip of white paper at the end of each sheet, and that's meant to overlap with the next piece so that you can line up the pattern and make sure that you're hanging it straight and everything like that. But to get the pieces to line up was really frustrating to me. I kept finding myself hanging it crooked, so I had to keep scooting it over or taking it off and putting it back on, and that was really aggravating to me, and it literally took like an hour to get it perfectly lined up. Also, I found that the edges really did not want to stick to each other, so I kept going back up with my paintbrush and wetting the edges of the paper really well to try to get them to stick to each other, and finally they did. I also held my smoothing tool over the edges for a few minutes as well in different places just to get them to stick together. Also, in some spots, once again, I found that they were too dry, so I did the same process as before with wetting the wall with water from the paintbrush, and again, that seemed to help. But for some reason, I was mostly having a problem with, one, lining it up, and two, getting the edges to stick to each other. And after I finished hanging this piece, I decided to call it a night because I was exhausted mentally and physically. So I decided to finish the rest of the wall the next day. So if you see me in a different outfit, that's why. At this point, it was now the next day, and I felt refreshed and ready to finish this project. So Here is how it looked when I got section 3 hung up. Section 3 was a lot easier at this point. I felt like I knew what to expect. The only issue I ran into was cutting out around the power outlet. That was kind of hard because I accidentally cut the hole too big and I had to take a patch and patch it pretty much. So I took a small piece of wallpaper and made sure the pattern lined up, and I cut it and added it to where it needed a piece. So luckily, however, my vintage desk sits right in front of the power outlet, so you can't see it anyway. So for piece 4, the last and final piece, I had to open the second roll of wallpaper, which was kind of annoying because I had a small section of paper left over from the first roll at this point, but it wasn't long enough to do the whole wall. I would say it would go about halfway down. So I guess I'm just going to keep that for extra or something. So I had to open the second roll, which I kind of didn't want to do. I was hoping I could have returned it to the store, honestly, but it is what it is. It was also hard to line up this corner for me, and as you can see, there's a little piece of the corner at the bottom that doesn't have any paper. I guess I hung it crooked or something, but I don't think you can really tell, especially when I get furniture here. I'm going to put a chair here so I can film, and then you won't see that corner anyway. But yeah, that's pretty much it for part 1 of this video. Be sure to click the bell icon below and subscribe so you can be notified when part 2 is posted and we start decorating. And I promise it's going to look so cool in here. You definitely don't want to miss that. But thank you for struggling through this video with me. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and leave a comment, and I will see you guys next time. Stay spooky. Bye.